Okay, dear Asena Television viewers, today our program is going to be about the activities of the UK-based Eritrean Opposition Working Group, known as Working Together for Peace and Democracy. We will particularly focus on the activities the group is carrying out to stop the PFDJ or the Eritrean Embassy-sponsored festival that's going to take place in the coming weekend in London. Thank you, dear guests, Mr. Aman Goitom from Leeds, and also Barakat Kahsai from Sheffield, UK. They are all members of the working group. Shall we start with, with an introduction of yourselves as well as the group that you represent? The working group, rather. Aman, we can start with you.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, viewers, as well. And thank you, very nice to see you after such a long time. My name is Aman, a former Eritrean journalist and a community activist living in Leeds now, an Eritrean.
Thank you for having me, Emmanuel. My name is Barakat Kasai. I'm from Sheffield. I've been in the UK for so many years now, and I've been involved in community activism, pro-democracy and justice organizations as well. And I'm here today as part of this ongoing campaign to protest against the Eritrean regime's festival of hatred.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the working group is an opposition working group. I think there is a very active youth group there. Can you please say something about the characteristics of these young activists? Aman.
Okay.
Well, in Tigrinya we call them Brigade Nahamadu, but they are youth anyway.
Okay. Well, just to make things clear, in this umbrella of a massive group of Eritreans who are acting, taking part in so many groups and activities. We have so many names: Yakul, Brigade Nahamadu, there is LC, a lot of groups. So the idea is, to be honest, is how we can make the public aware and stop these illegal activities of the Eritrean regime, trying to exploit the European freedom, or generally, like UK or Netherlands or wherever they are, and dividing the communities and making use of all the resources in Europe, and we're trying to shed light as to why we are against all these activities and why we want it to stop. And in particular, this young group, what makes them unique is because these people have recently came to the UK or Europe in general, and the regime has sent them to their places of sanctuary, and they're finding it hard to accept, like anybody else. But being youth, usually, of course, it affects you emotionally and in all terms. So that's why they're more organized, more active, and we have seen their activities more vividly than any other group acting on this for this purpose or aim. Babere knows more, I think.
I think it is worth highlighting about this age group in particular. As he said, Emmanuel, it's a collection of different opposition groups, but this group in particular, which is probably dominated by the young people who arrived recently to Europe and the UK, I think they are a lot of traumatized people. women.
Yeah, they are traumatized, and they are with their fresh wounds.
Exactly. And their trauma started from home, from Eritrea, because of the dictatorial regime there, and the difficult journey that they come through. They come through the Sahara Desert as well as the Mediterranean. So I would like you to say something as an additional comment, Barakat, as was Aman had been saying. I just wanted to add more, if you have.
Okay. Yeah, most members of this joint action group in the UK, as Emmanuel rightly said, and you said as well, are newly arrival young men and women. And obviously, what made them flee from their countries, the well-founded fear of persecution in Eritrea, the poor human rights records, religious persecution, forced indefinite military service, and obviously the fear and oppression in Eritrea, or repression that has been ruled the country by the regime. And obviously on their way to the UK, they have been through a lot of traumatic experience, as you have just said. And not only you, even the international community is aware of this. There are lots of reports that these people are bona fide or genuine asylum seekers, genuine refugees. But the sad reality is once they arrive in the West, the same regime who made them or forced them to flee their country follows them here and tries to mock on their wounds. And that's why we formed this group in the UK from all walks of life and from different age groups, not only those young men and women, but also other organizations. At least 7 organizations in the UK are involved in this action group. And this group is not only in the UK, it's also throughout the world. And what we are trying to do is to have this noble, non-violent method of resisting the Eritrean regime that violates international law and fundamental human rights violations, and to highlight these things in the UK. And not only that, we want to revive and bolster international support, as well as to give hope to our people back home.
In fact, the name of the group, the working together, is working together for peace and and justice. Yeah, that's I think the name of the group. But to come back again to this group, because the embassies, the Eritrean embassy in the UK and all over the world, and the supporters of the PFDJ regime, they try to paint them as as hooligans or terrorists. So it's good, I think, to say more about them, particularly while their background is what you indicated. Even from Eritreans in the UK or in the diaspora, as well as the host communities, they don't get the deserved attention. Well, as we have been saying, they are traumatized and they need support, but they don't get enough attention. So I would like you to say more about that as well. It's not only Aman,
Okay. As you said, rightly so, what we're trying to say is, honestly, we're against all kinds of violence. And credit to the Eritrean youth, since all these years, let's not forget that these people, including my generation and people before us, and including yours, Emmanuel, these are people who have been into wars and what have you. And to be honest, every individual or every human who has been through what we have been would display some kind of mental distress. But credit to all Eritreans again. Whether it's in Canada, US, or Europe, or wherever they have gone, Australia, their track record has been always right, and it's a unique thing. But to be honest, recently we're looking at this, what it looks like violent behavior. But as Barakat has mentioned it to some extent, it is like this regime is rubbing salt into their wounds deliberately, and this intimidation and this kind of teasing behavior, like a cornered animal. Then eventually there is some kind of reaction where some people would appear as or display their grievances in a violent way at times, and this is deliberately done by this system so that they can their image would be attention, and people or media at least will pick them. And last time in London, for instance, there was a bit of issues with the police, and it all started because the police have blocked all the ways, and they tried to stop them like 7 corners from the main event, and all they were trying is just to cross the lines of the police, and in the process, obviously chasing them, and some people have injured themselves, and in the media, not all of them, some have been reported as if there has been an incident of some kind of vandalism or antisocial behavior, but that was not the case. But I mean, where on earth have we seen where there is an angry mob being tested to the limits who did not shout or show some kind of anger? And but we need to understand the background of all this. And this regime, which is known to the globe, I mean, globally, a authoritarian regime, a regime that is, like, honestly speaking, setting foot some kind of, like, imagine in the view of Europeans, especially the UK, if there is a fascist government, a regime from somewhere overseas, and setting ground on this country, wearing military dress and making all the slogans that can add somebody's democratic rights in one country, they would be, honestly, it would raise the eyebrows of everyone who would be watching at this kind of regime. Now, this is, although we know the Eritrean regime might be insignificant to a lot of European countries, but I mean, like, regionally in the region, we know what havoc it has done to the Tigray and Ethiopian war. Now in Sudan, although time will reveal it, and I don't want to go into details because this will sound like I'm making stories, but facts will come out and politicians would know. So the looking like insignificant regime, to us, it is a massive thing, and it's causing, I mean, like, a massive problem to these people who came all the way through all these difficulties to find some peace and sanctuary in these hosting communities or countries that we are very grateful. And then eventually, as I said, when these things happen, obviously we're getting a little bit upset, and some people will catch those little incidents and try to make a mold out of these little things, and then eventually in the media, because always you can pick a story how you want it, and it's easy to persuade people's perception, bring in something small, and you don't bring the whole image. So what we're trying to do today is set the figures and set the picture right as it is, and how people should be understanding the whole situation. And make their own judgments.
Thank you, Aman. Mr. Barakat, for any ordinary person not familiar with the Eritrean politics, opposing a festival may sound like an odd kind of thing, to do. So could you please shed light on the nature of the PFDJ-sponsored festivals that are being held in the UK or any other places for that matter? Who are they intended to serve and benefit?
Okay, it's a good question. What I'd like to say is, in principle, we don't oppose any cultural festivals as long as it's been conducted, organized in the spirit of the community that it wishes or purported to serve. But this is a politically motivated festival because we have got watertight evidence. It's available for the public to see for themselves, for everyone, whether to the UK authorities, to the police, to the British government, whether to anyone. We can substantiate it. There are lots of media outlets that can prove it. But the event's main aim of the festival is to strengthen and propagate the unity of Eritreans living in the UK to gain their full commitment, politically and financially, in support of the Eritrean tyranny, which is the regime of Eritrean dictator Isaias Afwerki and his inner circles clique. We call them PFDJ. So that's what we are opposing. And we oppose them because, as we said, the regime rules the country by fear and through repression. They don't have any regard for human rights. They don't uphold rule of law. And not only that, the regime is involved in destabilizing the region. The country has been involved in lots of wars, whether within Eritrea and even in the intra-region, like with neighboring countries as far as Yemen, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Sudan. And not only that, as far as Democratic Republic of Congo and this sort of things. So by allowing the regime to keep doing this and trying to portray an image of being loved and accepted by the Eritrean community in the UK is something that we can't turn a blind eye to. So we have a moral and legal obligation or national obligation as well to stand up to this regime. So this is the one thing, to gain credibility, to gain legitimacy from the Eritrean perspective. And at the same time, those who wish to or who stand up against the regime and oppose it would say, well, these are not Eritreans. They want to label us as non-Eritreans. Get me? If you are Eritrean, according to their narrative, is you have to conform, you have to adapt, you have to show deference, submission, absolute submission. So we want to send a message. This is not the case. We have legitimate views and a stake in the country, in Eritrea. So we don't want anyone to tell us who we are. We can define our identity ourselves. This is the other thing. And the other thing that makes this this festival something that is not in the public interest is because it promotes hatred, not only to Eritreans, it promotes hatred to our neighbors, whether it's Tigray or whether it's Ethiopia, whether it's Sudan, whether it's calling them names, and it demonizes as well, demonizes the West. So they want to create this siege mentality to say we and them, not only we Eritreans against just one that they perceive to be our enemy. Let's say they pick up usually on Ethiopia or Tigray, but it doesn't last there. They keep creating this image of perpetuating conflict, you get me, with everybody, we against all, against the West, against America, against the UK. So if you keep like undermining the system of the Western world, but at the same time, you should not be allowed to benefit from that system. If you don't like the Western way of life, the Eritrean authorities, the Eritrean embassies, they should not organize a festival in the UK. It's a festival of hatred. They should go back and organize a festival in Eritrea. So by doing so, they are creating a divided society, even with Eritreans in the UK. Those with the regime, those against the regime. So this is a source of communal tensions and violence. So this is something that we want the UK or the British government to understand. I believe the British politicians, they know better than me, than all of us, because they are in a position of authorities. It's the UK. I mean, we know the UK is a big empire. Well, as a British, has got lots of things about Eritrea, and you get me, even before Eritrea became independent. It's always been there. So what we are trying to send is the message to the police. We have a noble cause, and we are going to apply non-violent method of resisting these injustices in Eritrea, and we are for peace, unlike the Eritrean government, who usually promotes hatred towards our neighbors, towards our people, and towards the West. So this is an important message that we want to send across. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Barakat. Aman, just as an extension to that, they normally announce it as a Eritrean Cultural Festival, but it's open and inclusive. Who are the organizers and the participants? What is the role of the Eritrean embassy at these festivals?
Okay, my colleague has already touched on a lot of things. The main intention is obviously extortion of money, okay, and coercion. If a child wants to travel to Eritrea, for instance, born in the UK or anywhere in Europe, they will need to have an ID, and so it's ridiculous. Somebody who is British citizen will need an Eritrean ID to travel, and this is like an obligation. You have to, and if you don't have it, you can't travel. It doesn't even matter whether their dads or moms are fully Eritrean or not, and that is the reason is because when they go back there, one thing they can do whatever they want with them because they will say they're our nationals, like what happened to Dawit, the Swedish and the Eritrean national journalists who have been arrested and in detention or just since 2001. So that is the purpose. One of it is for political thing, and the other is money. This very cultural, so-called community cultural activity is all about money. But let me use this opportunity, by the way, to also make it clear to our sons and daughters born and raised in this country who are very young, who want to have a bit of an opportunity where they could learn about their language, culture, and tradition and ethnicities and what have you. But it's all fake. We would have been so glad if actually they were taught the actual facts as to what happened and how Eritrea came to existence and the sacrifices that has been paid and what was our aim and aspiration as Eritrean people when we were during the revolutionary long years of struggle, Emmanuel. So if our daughters and sons know exactly why or Eritreans have fought all these years and what it has yielded to now, is this the Eritrea that we were trying or hoping to see? Is this what Eritreans yearn all these years to have eventually? So, if they can really teach them the culture and history of Eritrea, we're so glad because eventually these young men and women will learn and they will question their parents. What are we doing here then? If this is Eritrea that has been gained through all these sacrifices, and why are this young generation not even traveling through the airports like any other city? Look at any African. There are some sub-Saharan Africans, obviously, who are trying to cross the sea because of economic reasons. If they can afford, they would have bought a passport and flew like anybody else through the airports, dignified as any other citizen. But these Eritreans, they don't have even the opportunity to travel from one city to another within Eritrea, let alone crossing the borders to a neighboring country or flying over some nations. So if they were teaching them the actual fact, then we would be over the moon because we don't have to do anything. These young people will question them and they will ask them. But the thing is, as we know it, okay, I'm really sorry if I'm using foul language, but the psychopath families will only tell them like, oh, this is our culture. This is what you need to be dressed. This is the flag. This is our leader. The whole world is against us, like Beria said. And we're standing against all odds and surviving, as if Eritrea is fighting in all kinds of. Why would Eritrea be a target? And any rational-minded person will ask, why would Eritrea be exposed? This is a tiny, small country, insignificant to the big powers, especially. And also, we know how they want to portray themselves, anyways. But is that the fact? And this young generation, especially these days, they can Google and find out how many prisons in Eritrea, or how many colleges are there? Is there any university? Is there any free press? Do people in their age get any access into internet or any like social media facilities? Can they express their opinion? Or can they live their lives as they wish? It's all non-existent in Eritrea. So this very fact should tell these young people, without me or anybody explaining, this is a regime that is playing with the lives of Eritreans. This is the regime that is destroying Eritrea with all its resources after all these sacrifices. Eritrea probably, we can leave it to history, but it would be one of this, unique countries who have sacrificed the biggest population of its people to get its independence. And eventually, where do we end up? Into where we are. So who is to ask and who is to be questioned for all these laws and all this? So that obviously, as Barry has said, they will try to blame it on others. But it is simple question. Nobody is running Eritrea. This is the same regime that is ruling Eritrea. So it's not Wayane, it's not Tigray, it's not Americans who are ruling. Yes, politically, you might have some conflicts, but socially, who is inflicting all the damage into Eritreans? I mean, a lot of them have the opportunity to visit Asmara and see the walls and roads for their own eyes. And who has stopped these walls from being painted or roads being repaired or built? Since the Italians have made some significant infrastructure in Eritrea, nothing has been done. Why? Even Somalia was in war. Look at Somalia now. There is a YouTube video that I've seen, new Mogadishu, around Mogadishu, a new city. You might have seen it. It's like with all the facilities, it looks like somewhere in Europe. And why Eritreans cannot build any single house? So they need to ask themselves. They don't have to even wait. So if this were a cultural and political awareness for Eritreans, wow, I would be clapping and first person to tell my kids, go and enjoy it, learn something. But that is not the intention. We know that's not the intention. And that's why we're against it. Sorry if I'm talking.
That's right. Actually, the Somalis are doing so while they have internal, domestic conflict with the Shabab.
Every country has. Every country has.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Thank you, Aman. Barakat, so the PFDJ has a plan to host the type of festival that you have just described in London in a couple of days, from 15 to 16 July, just the coming weekend, What are the preparations that are being made by the opposition working group to stop it? And what could you achieve by doing so?
As I've just mentioned at the outset, well, there are a group of Eritrean activists. They have all come from a range of different areas within Eritrea and within the UK. So all of us will try to voice and protest against this festival, because I told you the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, the regime uses this festival for different purposes, which is
you may focus on the preparations and then
politically motivated. So we try on one hand, we keep trying for the event to be boycotted, one by Eritreans, and we state the reasons. Every Eritrean knows why we are calling for them to boycott it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they would not have. They would have, if that wasn't the case, they would have preferred to be relocated to Eritrea. If Eritrea is good enough for them and deserve to not boycott the festival, why would they stay in the UK if they want to celebrate their culture? They know the reasons. We don't need to campaign for them, but we call for them to boycott it, not to go. They don't necessarily have to be a member of this opposition organization, but they can boycott it and be passive people, which is good. And the other thing, what in our preparation, what we are trying to do is we're reaching out to the international community, especially to gain support. As long as we are in the UK, we reach out and target the people in the UK, what the festival is and why we're protesting against this festival. So we spread the words, whether through social media, in different languages, in different formats. So we are appealing to Eritreans, and we are also urging the UK government, we're trying to lobby them, not only short term, focusing on this festival, but beyond that, we want them to see and understand the impacts and implications of hosting such festivals in a democratic country like the UK, you get me? Because they have to make a case. You know, the politicians, they make a case for this liberal, open country. And at the same time, they have to balance that with allowing another dictatorial regime like Eritreans exploiting the freedom and the openness in the UK and the tolerance to create divisions within the Eritrean society. So lots of people involved in this group, like I said, from different parts in the UK, are also reaching out to their MPs and telling them, look, don't only say to us, we want to show to the Eritrean government our good side, to say we are the West, we are very tolerant, we can tolerate dictators, we have this freedom of assembly, we have this freedom of expression, you want to express your culture and stuff. So yeah, that's what we are trying to do. That's what they say, politicians. They play their own games, but we try to keep pressing to say that we matter because our number is growing. You know, politicians, how they work in the West is like, if you have a big number and if they think you can vote for them, and this will have an impact on their conduct and performance. So we are getting some positive answers.
So briefly, as I can understand it, probably they are following two avenues. One is to stop it legally, if not to stage this peaceful demonstration, I think. Is that so?
Yes, previously, except this leisure center in London, Harrow, I can give you a list of them. The Greek Orthodox community in South London, the managers of the venues said no. Shoreditch town in London said no previously, both of them. And then there was the Irish Center in Camden. They said no to the Eritrean embassy. Union Chapel said no because they said it contradicts with their values. They don't allow any political campaign. It's political purpose and propaganda. Because most venues, they are aware, if it's the Eritrean embassy and the people who are linked with that embassy, they go on the internet and search about this cultural event. And obviously it states lots of things. And then if you go to the link on YouTube and everything, especially this embassy media and everything, you would see lots of propaganda in English and in different languages. And Islington, near the Eritrean embassy, they said no. So we have lots of cases from before. Even the Cornet at the Elephant and Castle is quite massive area. They said no to the Eritrean embassy. So we have lots of successful stories. So we are trying to replicate these sort of things. Yeah, the preparation.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not only short term. We are not only focused for this moment. We are seeing beyond this moment. We want everybody to know about the Eritrean embassy's intentions, purposes, and what they stand for, about their values. So these are some of the things. Other than that, lots of people will be traveling to London from across the UK, like I said. So there is going to be very visible and huge presence of Eritrean activists. Would be voicing their.
Thank you. Thank you, Barakat. Aman, if you have something to add on to it before I proceed to the next question, please.
I think my colleague has said it all, but a little bit of things that we want to make clear is one thing, as he said, the politicians or the decision makers have to understand that this is a regime that is extending its hands into, it's a paradoxic in nature. I mean, this is authoritarian regime trying to exploit the freedom of and tolerance of the Western politics. That's one thing. And the other thing is there is a community that has been polarized to some extent and also been exploited. This act has to stop, and it doesn't have to be through the politicians, but we want the general public, whether it is whoever it is. I mean, like, if there is injustice in Eritrea, to a single human, then it appeals to anyone who is also like, I don't know, there is something happening in Ukraine, it affects me as a human. And some British citizens has gone to, I don't want to mention any countries, but whenever they think it's a good cause, people sacrifices their lives. And we're not asking for lives. We're trying to avert this incident because we know it ostracizes societies. It disrupts the cohesion and peace and harmony of this Eritrean community and other communities in that region. And also, as what we have witnessed in Germany, the hosting communities have been affected massively. And what's the need for that? So it's a simple thing. Stop it just before all these things can happen. So we're not trying to threaten anyone or it's warning or anything, but it's for the good of everyone, because this is not in any good intention. It has something underneath, and this clandestine systemic exploitation of vulnerable communities like the Eritreans is wrong morally, legally, in all terms. So we want the politicians to understand and use their legal right or their, as he said, they've been elected for a reason. They've been elected for not only the people who voted for them, but anyone living in London or Liverpool or wherever you're living. So they need to act responsibly and see for its real, what is this and why is it happening, and does it need to happen in the first place, and take the right measure before. And if that didn't happen, or it falls into deaf ear, as it has in some occasions, then the Eritreans are prepared to go to the streets and make their opinion heard. And we call the general public, whoever is listening to these videos, to come along us and stand with us in this campaign. Thank you.
Obviously, in a peaceful way, yeah.
Yes, that's our invitation.
Exactly, yeah. Aman, as you might have followed it all over the media, there has been a similar PFDJ festival in Gießen, Germany, just the past weekend. Yeah? Well, it was very controversial. We all know that the assignment to host this kind of festivals originate from Eritrea, from the regime inside Eritrea. It's a political platform, as you have been saying, but they always try to disguise it as a cultural festival. What could you say about it? It's we want to draw a parallel because they are part and parcel of this festival. Actually, I have a photo where the spokesman of the Eritrean government, Yemane Charlie, has contradicted with those who asked permission in Gießen, because they were saying that it's a cultural event, but he contradicted them that it is like a political kind of stage, because some regional administrators from Eritrea who are part of the PFDJ have been invited, and they are the ones who have inaugurated this festival. I will show you his tweet, and then you can respond to it. Both of you, actually. Yeah, this is the Twitter from Yemane Charlie. If you can read it, Aman, and then
yeah. It is. Go on.
Yeah, it's very funny.
It is very funny. I mean, honestly speaking, he shot himself on the foot by this, because, I mean, had it been any cultural thing, well, one thing he should have mentioned as well, it's not only about what happened inside the venue, what has happened outside and why people have protested. So if it was actually, this is the very reason we're saying it is very divisive and it's intended for a political mission. And if it was really put yourself into his position. If you are an Eritrean minister, you'll be concerned not only of the people who are gathered and who want to come and glorify your system. You'll be concerned about any other Eritrean, whatever his political stand and feeling is. So what about those who were outside and in the sun and trying to stop this festival. So this tells you one thing. He was cherry picking and trying to show the world or their supporters or how they want it to be reported that there was a glamorous incident where Eritreans are with their regime and doing all this colorful festival with nothing has happened and as if there was no any protest or nothing. So this is enough information or enough incident, evidence to expose the regime because, as I said, he has shot himself in the foot. And the other thing is there were also the governors who were like the main agents, of the government who have organized it. I mean, can you see anybody from this, like for instance, any religious figure or community instructor or someone who the German community generally knows as an activist who has contributed something to the Eritrean community? None. These are political old men and women.
Actually, Aman, these are the administrators of the Eritrean regions.
Exactly, they're
cadres who are ordering the roundups of the youths all the time.
Exactly, passing information, trying to control the community, and actually, as we said, this is why we're against all these activities because we know these people. I mean, and I'm sure the German politicians know them since ages because they have been there for a very, very long time. And these people, they have no intentions of gathering the Eritrean community or creating any harmony and peace. And had that been the reason, they would have invited everyone and answer their questions. And if you have nothing to hide, you don't need to block your doors. But just like what is Eritrea, I mean, like you can't use your camera or mobile right from the airport. Any foreigner who has visited Eritrea would tell the truth or no. Like recently, I've seen a YouTuber, Egyptian, who was extremely surprised. Like, it's like unique. I mean, like it's no place in the globe where you can find the amount of sensor and control like Eritrea is. It's exactly a replicate of that happening in Germany, and you can see there were some YouTubers or I don't know journalists in Mestat Betna, the Eritrean news agent, was reporting when their followers were intimidating the cameraman or running away, and they were saying, "Oh, I think he's filming you." And if you are talking the truth,
actually,
doing the right thing, why are you scared of the camera? Yeah,
he was a German journalist. You know, these people, they were trying to to stop him from filming the event, you know.
Well, that's what they stand for. That's what they're taught, and they have to practice the same thing what they've been educated all their years and brainwashed to do so. And that is what I mean. They don't even understand. They think that they are like with the same mentality as to what is happening. And as I said, if you have nothing to hide, why do you have to run away from a journalist or someone who is taking pictures of you?
Yeah.
If I'm happy and I know what I'm doing and I'm glad and proud of what I'm doing, I will be actually promoting it and calling journalists. Please come interview me. Take a picture of this incident. Look how peaceful I am. But that was the contrary. They were all elderly men and women who have mastered the German language because you can tell they've lived for so long. And these people are like hedonists. They don't care of what is happening, morally corrupted, and they don't care. Like, I'm sorry for my language, but that's the truth. I mean, anyone who, I mean, let alone being Eritrean, any human who knows what is happening to Eritreans generally. All we know about Eritreans these days is somebody is dying on the sea, somebody has been, I mean, their body organs have been it's all negative image of Eritrea. Why all these young people exposed? And if you are Eritrean, coming with flags and to dance and have a bit of fun, how morally dead you are. So that tells everything, anyways. So these are the kind of people who are gathered to educate young people. What do you expect? I mean, what can a butcher teach somebody else? So it's like, I'm sorry for my language, but go ahead. I'm getting it.
Thank you, Aman. Barakat, I would like you to say something about the contradiction. Initially, the Gisan festival was banned by the municipality, and later on they appealed and they got permission by the court. So what they said was, as I indicated it earlier on, they said it is a cultural festival for children and for the community, but Yamane Charlie, the presidential spokesman in Eritrea, he said that it was, something else. Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, although I've not seen the details of the case, like the court's case and the ruling and everything by the courts. On one hand, well, I admire the Germans for allowing the Eritreans who don't have such a legal justice system in Eritrea. They deny the people to dare and go, well, hoping that it's going to be a fair.
But there is a backlash now because the community, the Gisan population, I mean, they are saying, why do you host these people? I mean,
let me finish. So what I'm trying to say is, like, someone in principle, firstly in principle and passionately don't agree with any rule of law and justice, like the Eritrean regime, and if you ask them about justice and rule of law, they say, we don't care. We don't like laws. They like hardball. They play hardball, Eritreans, especially the psyche of Isaias. All these festivals they do here, or what they practice in Eritrea, is militarism. Militaristic culture. That's what Eritrea is, obviously. So when the Germans said no, I was hoping that the Eritrean government and its supporter would say, okay, Germany is a big country, although advanced liberal country, but they said no, they are military stronger. They have this hard power and soft power. We are not going to challenge them. But at the same time, although I don't agree with the ruling of the court, they appealed and they went to court. So this contradicts what they believe in Eritrean practice. Do you understand that?
But you are right. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that they misled the court.
Okay, the court may not be misled. I don't think they are misled. Well, the courts obviously they apply the law, one thing, and the other times, the courts, well, they have their own way of dealing with things. I'm not legally qualified to comment on that.
Well, it has been all over the media. The media has been saying,
yes. The courts sometimes they have this power to exercise. You get me? At their discretion, some judges, and we'll find out sooner or later why they allowed, the appeal, why they allowed. We'd find out. But in principle, we don't agree. Even the Eritrean regime do not agree in principle. They don't uphold the ruling of the court. Do you understand? Because in Eritrea, we don't have such things. The court, the executive, the judiciary, and the executive, judiciary and legislative is in one man. But in Germany, that's not the case. They have different power structures. And having and allowing the Eritrean government to enjoy and experience this sort of thing is, in itself, I regard it as success for us. On one hand, it's not a complete success, but it's a success in itself. And I applaud to the Eritreans, to the young people and all of those activists that we are trying to replicate in the UK, and we are working with them. I praise them for what they achieved. because they took the Eritrean government to there. So and at the same time, the Gießen governor or governorate, or it's a federal
mayor,
Germany, they have their own way, and they have things, whether from security perspective, from logistical perspective, from financial perspective, from lots of calculations.
Well, they had experience from last year. There was,
yes,
was chaos, you know, they had similar incidents. That's why, yeah.
Yes, I understand. But on the other hand, it's not like a zero-sum game. I don't think we justice seekers, you know, our camp in Germany, you know, those young people who protested, it was not a lost case. They won the case, on the other hand. You get me? Because the Eritrean government has been allowed to go ahead with the festival, but under police protection. The city municipality came to a standstill, and it highlighted, well, the Eritrean opposition camp, those young people, they became very visible in Germany. You get me? And the media got lots of coverage, and people knew a lot about the event. So I feel that despite what the costs and lots of things, I feel we nailed it. You know, we got it. It worked to our benefit. That's how I see it. In the long term, you may not see it because at the moment it's not, may not be very visible, or you may not be satisfied. You may not agree with me, but long term you would agree with me.
No, I'm not talking about my disagreements. I'm saying that this was a propaganda festival, a political propaganda festival, but they tried to convince the court that it was a cultural event, that it has nothing to do with the regime in Eritrea. So
can I add something?
Come in, Aman. Thank you, Barahat. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, let me give credit to the Germans. I mean, like, credit where credit is due. Whether it's the court or the police or the community, they have proved one thing. If the court would have disallowed this incident from taking place, then the regime would have found some excuse and say, look at the West, they preach on democracy and freedom of rights and what have you, but they didn't even allow us the ground to say. So they put it as a cultural event, and obviously the judge would have to allow it because as to what has been put on paper, that's what it signifies. So he has to go according to what is written on paper and what they're saying. If you're lying on the claim on you or not on the judge. So, but also this shows you to what extent the Western or Germany policy has gone to accommodate, including those who are known to be hostile to, I mean, it's seen on the records of human rights, Eritrea is one of the abusers. But even if they try to accommodate and they have gone to that extent, which they have allowed it to happen, their police have been victims of all this, which I wish them a swift recovery, and hopefully anyone goes back to their duties and work, because they're there to protect their communities. This is not their war. This has nothing to do with them. They were on the wrong place doing their duties. So I feel for them, and all the Eritrean justice seekers are also. I mean, if we had the opportunity, we would go with flowers and visit them in hospitals or wherever they are, because they deserve it. They are not in any way our enemies, or we don't call it any success or anything. This is a collateral damage. We feel their pain. So yeah, we also want the police or whoever is held, because there are young people who have been detained or arrested because of their actions during that period. We want them to understand what the whole thing was and why these young men and women have exposed themselves. After all, I mean, if they were like the regime, or they are in safe land and having all the privilege that they yearn for, and they could have sat on their sofas and watched what's happening. But actually, they came out for their people, for their morale, and come out to stand against this act of authoritarian regime. and they showed their humanity. So that needs to be considered. So in the heat of time, things can happen. People can be injured and what have you. And we're not in any way promoting or supporting any violence. It shouldn't have happened. But we could learn a lesson out of it. And we want it to be seen in a pragmatic manner and people understanding why these young people. Because when people are, as we said it in the beginning, people are traumatized and they have been through so many things. And when someone is not in the right mindset, they can do things which are not appropriate that they could regret later. And I'm sure a lot of these young men and women, the next morning, they have understood that it was not right to at least have whatever action with the police, but that was not their intention in the first place. What they've gone for, that's a different agenda. So all in all, the regime has been exposed because, as Beres said, all the medias in the West, CNN, as far as America, Canada, BBC, UK, all have reported what has happened. The regime wants to tell that there was a festival that has been conducted successfully, but that is not the case. It has exposed the system, it has exposed the regime, and the aim of the regime was totally different. And to be honest, it has exposed it to the worst extent that has never been happened. So politically, propaganda-wise, they lost. And they lost, it's a big time they lost, and they know it. And that damage, next year or whatever, Germany will be thinking twice because they have seen what has happened. And I feel for the city as well, because nobody deserves it. What has happened should not be repeated again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aman. Thank you, both. So as we conclude our discussion, you are welcome to give some, concluding remarks, to the host community, to the law enforcement, people and the opposition as well, in relation to the festival that's going to take place in the coming weekend, the PFDJ Festival. Barakat, I can start with you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, the regime, obviously, in Eritrea, and at the same time, who is allowed to get away with it, in contrary to the international law and in violation of fundamental human rights laws, has been allowed to get away, is to blame. But at the same time, the international community, in particular Germany and the UK, are also to blame and must be widely shared. Blame must be widely shared. It's because the Eritrean government, who happen to repudiate, violate those things, is still allowed to do whatever they want to do in the UK. For instance, we have the Eritrean government voting in support of Russian invasion in Ukraine, which is against the charters of the United Nations. And obviously, if we said those who voted for Russia to invade another country, like North Korea, we know what the category of North Korea is labeled as a pariah state. We know Syria. Syria is like a protectorate of Russia. Russia do whatever they want in Syria, and we know what's happening to Syrians. They are all over the place across the world. They are going through difficult times. But at the same time, North Korea government or Syrian government would not be allowed, especially, let's say, Syrian government, who have lots of refugees in the West, in Germany, and in all the Western world, in the UK. They don't dare, the Bashar regime would not dare to hold a festival in the UK so that to gain and garner support of the Syrians here, or fundraising events. It would not happen, would never happen. And even if the UK or German tried to allow it, America would impose a sanction on them, would say, no, this is not tolerated. But we can see there is one rule for South Korea, North Korea, and Syria and other, like pariah states, and another rule for Eritrea. You get me? So this does not make sense at all. So this is the message that we try to get across by allowing the Eritrean government to get away with all the crimes and violations of international norms and laws. It's not only Eritreans being in harm's way. It's not only us who been put in harm's way. Even the UK nationals would be put in harm's way because they are taking advantages of this country's policies. And the same, Ukrainians, we have lots of Ukrainians here as much as Eritreans, even more than us. You get me? And if we have the Eritrean government who voted against them in support of the war, how would you feel as an Eritrean if you see a Ukrainian being displaced, lost their family because of Eritrea's, well, to a certain extent, vote in the UN? How would you feel? Not only short term, but in the long term. So these are some of the things as well. It's not only, we are not protesting only from our own perspective, but also we are citizens of the world like everybody else. So what happens in Ukraine and how the Eritrean government votes in Ukraine would affect us long term or short term. So we need to have this message of solidarity to the Ukrainians and to the other people who are standing with the Ukrainians as well. Thank you. We are a cosmopolitan society. So
yeah.
We have to share this solidarity with other communities as much as with the Eritreans.
Yeah. Thank you, Barakat. Okay, Aman. Yeah. If you can say a few words. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I'll just put it locally. The politicians and decision makers have the power to stop all this disruption. We don't want to see what has happened in some other cities repeated in London. Let the people of London do their business and live their lives as they wish. Let the police do some other stuff, rescuing people who are in danger, and not waste their times to separate this to different opinion community. Divided community because of the regime back at home. And also, we haven't signed papers coming here, but if you're going to Canada or US or wherever, or been naturalized to be a European citizen or UK citizen, there are boxes that you tick. You don't stand supporting terrorist groups. You don't promote hatred and all these kind of things, moral values that make you a right citizen for a nation. So likewise, the police, not the ordinary police who is sent to do his duty, but the people at the main office, the politicians who make these decisions, the mayor and all these people should stand with the same values. And this kind of a system should not be allowed to set foot in Europe and milk the system because of its tolerance and accommodation of all things. When you're hosting communities, it's not only you give them papers and that's it, you live however you want. No, those values should be upheld and respected. And whatever is happening, we have explained it enough. And anyone who wants to know what this regime stands for, it's easy. You can Google and find it. So this regime should be seen for its actual figure, for its actual disruption and terrorism and fascism and all the negative things that a wrong example of African politics. And they call it a million times the North Korean of Eritrea. So this is the regime that is what we're trying to stop from exploiting the system and the Eritrean community in general. And we want every peace-loving human or British especially to stand with our cause and try to avert whatever can happen which I am not promoting again. But when people are disappointed and their voices are not heard, then it can end up easy into violence, which we want not to see that. Hopefully, if it is averted, that's the best for all, and peace for all humanity. Yeah, that's our message. Thank you.
I think you are saying the safest way, to have, a normal, peaceful situation is to stop the propaganda festival, I think. Thank you.
Or make it open. If they make it open and allow
Exactly.
us to participate and ask questions, legitimate questions, there is no need for the police or anybody to be there.
Exactly. If it is inclusive, Thank you. Thank you very much, Aman and Barakat, for providing us with an insight of your activities as well as the PFDJ Propaganda Festival that's going to take place in London. I really appreciate your time. Have a nice evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you, Barre.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.